Hello everybody, I hope you are enjoying your weekend. In this video we will try to cover all topics that will be in our first quiz, and I'm also hoping all of you best of luck in your coming exams like EST, ACT or SAT. Now let's start the revision. First we will start by how to call the relation to be a function, when it's a function or not, and determine the domain and range. So in the first question, each table represents a relation. Determine the domain and range. So this X, we call it the input. So these are the inputs. We call it also the domain. So for the domain, we can say we have -7, 2, 3. We don't repeat. For the range, we take the Y, the outputs. We call it the range. And in this case we have -1, 5, -7 and 4. We can put them in order from lowest to highest, and it's okay to put them without order, but don't repeat any repeated answers or any repeated values. To determine whether it's function or not, for the input, each input should have only one output. For this case we have -7. It has two different outputs, which will not make this a function. So this is not a function, because for the -7 it has more than one output. In this case, the second one, we have -4. It has more than one output, so it's not a function. For the domain, it's -4, -3, 1. For the range, it's 0, -1, 1, -5. But it's not a function because -4 has more than one output. You should mention this. We are trying to make this video very short but meaningful, so you concentrate with the words I'm saying, and also try to write the full answer. Here we have set of ordered pairs. The first is the input, which is the x coordinate. So in this case you can see that the 7 has two different outputs, so it's not a function. But we can get the domain, the x values, zeros, 0, 5, 7. For the range, it's 2, 1, 7, 4. But it's not a function because the 7 has more than one output. In this case we see that it's a function. The domain is -6, -5, -2, 1. For the range, it's 4, 2, 3. It's okay to have two different inputs with the same output. It's okay, so it's a function because for every input there is only one output. So for every input there's only, so we can write it, there is only one output. So in order pairs we have two cases, one not function, the second one is function. You see the difference between them. I also need to show you when the table is a function. When we have like a table with this case, there is no repeated inputs with different outputs. So for example, if we have -7, 2, 3, 5, -7, 4, in this case it's a function. Even if we have -7 and 2, they have the same output, it's okay. But for every one input, there's only one unique output. Here you can see that this is the domain, the x values, the inputs, and here's the range. But is it a function or not? Can you see the 2? So it's not a function. Why? Because for the 2 it has more than for 2 we have more than one output. We can say generally that for there's more than output for one input. This is also not a function because for -1 and -3 they have more than one output. From the graph we can test whether it's a function or not by the vertical line test. Let's see this example first, make it easier. You test the graph by drawing this vertical line test or passing this vertical line test. It will pass through the graph or it will intersect with the graph only once. This makes the graph a function. So you are trying to pass through the graph more than once. You cannot pass through the graph more than once anywhere. So we in this case call this a function. So this is a function because for every input there is only one output. For every input we have only one output. Now let's see the domain and range. For the domain, we take the x values. Imagine yourself are running on the x-axis because we are calling for the domain. You seek to see the graph. Wherever you go on the x-axis, you can see the graph above the x-axis until you get to this to number 6. So you can still see the graph below. After you go after 6, like exactly right after 6 and 7, 8 and so on, you cannot see the graph below or above the axis. So the domain stops here at 6. Okay, and we give this 6 the bracket. Okay, when we go to the left, the lowest value for the domain is -5. You can see the graph above the -5. After this you don't have value for the x that will work with the graph. Okay, for the range we take the lowest. We have this value, the -5 is the lowest point of the graph, -5 also, and the highest is 6 also. So this is the range from -5 to 6, the domain, from -5 to 6, the range. Okay, in some examples you will see that, for example, this is unshaded circle. It means the domain will not have this point in the domain, also in the range. So in this case, instead of writing the bracket, we will refer this by writing a parenthesis. It means this is not included or excluded from the domain. We will not use it. Okay, but in our case it's shaded, so we use the bracket. We will try a different example because you may be confused because they have the same start and end. Here we have, for the graph, we have only one value for the x, which is 3. You go right, you go left, you don't have graph except for the 3. So we can call the domain, it's only the value 3 will work with the domain. When we have specific values, we give this. But for the interval, when we say, for example, for the range, for example, the range means y-axis. You can see that it's from -5 to 4. So it's everything between -5 and 4. When we write this bracket, it means everything between starting from -5 to when we stop at 4. Okay, since it's shaded, it means the values are included. Okay, the limits are included. So can we call this a function? When we trying to apply the vertical line test, it will pass through the graph every single point for the output. It means it's not a function. To make it easy to, let me show you a different example which is easy to determine whether it's a function or not in 11 and 12. In 11 and 12, when you try to apply the vertical line test, you can see easily it's not a function because it intersects with the graph more than once. In number 12, you will not be able to intersect with the graph vertically more than one value, so this will call it a function according to the vertical line test. Will pass through the graph only once. Here, this vertical line test will pass through the graph, intersect with the graph more than one time. Like you see, the 2 has 2 different outputs, or the 3, or whatever. So we can say only that the vertical line test will intersect with the graph more than once. Let's go back to number 9 because we have done 7 and 8. Number 9, can you see whether it's a function or not? It is a function because the vertical line test says it's a function. The domain from left to right, this is the start, -7. For the domain, we can start from -7. We use the bracket if it's shaded, but since it's not shaded, we use the parentheses. Does the graph stop to the right? This arrow, it means it's going to the right. It's also going going down, okay? So since it's going to the right, it means it will not stop. It goes to infinity, and the infinity takes always the parentheses. For the range, we are seeking where to start. This is going down to the infinity, so it starts from -infinity. The maximum will be this value 1 because the graph does not exceed the coordinate at 1. So this is the end of the range. It takes a bracket because this value is included. It doesn't have a gap. Number 10. For every question you can stop and pause the video and give yourself a try so you can check your understanding. Then you can resume and play the video to check your answer. It's a function. The domain from -6 to, with the ray, it's positive infinity. This -6 and the infinity takes always a parentheses. For the domain, this is the domain. For the range, we start from are walking on the y-axis. The start is 0 here, and we go up. Don't stop here because on the right side it goes up with you to the infinity. When you check it from the right side, so it goes to infinity because this arrow, it means it's going up to the infinity, goes right to the infinity. Sorry, takes a parenthesis. Okay, for the domain here we have -infinity because this is going to the left, and it stops at 4 for the domain. For the range, it goes down to the -infinity, it goes up to the positive infinity. So we can say from -infinity to infinity, or we can say all real numbers. We have a different or a flip idea here, which is the domain will be all real numbers because it goes to the left or to take all values, it goes to the right, goes right to take all values. So we can say the domain all real values or real numbers, or we can say -infinity to positive infinity. But for the range, we have -3. We have positive infinity because it goes up to the infinity. Here we go to the next idea, or different idea. When we try to check if it's function or not, the vertical line test says it's a function. Okay, because we don't have two values above each other's. Like if we have this shaded, it means we have the line will pass through 2 different outputs for the 4 or whatever. So in this case we have a function because the vertical line test will pass through what you have only one time. so it's a function. For the domain, running on the x-axis, we have to the 4 from 0, okay, from 0 to 1. If this one is excluded, but it's taken in a different part of the graph, so it's continuous. But the final part, which is the 4, is not the 5 is not taking, so we will write a parenthesis. For the range, we have like jumping on the y-axis, we have only this and this and this because there is a gap between them. So we can say we can put this in a set of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's a function. Now this one, the domain from -5, let's say it's a function first. Okay, function. The domain from -5, -2 is, we can take it from this part. So from -5 in its closed or included to the 2, you can see that this 2 is not taken either neither above or below the axis, so it's unshaded. We have a different part. Since we have a gap, we need to add a different part. We use union to add the second part from 2 to 4. This part has two unshaded values are excluded, we put parentheses. This is for the domain. Okay, for the range, we have from -4, because we are going on the y-axis, from -4 to -2, because it's taken here. If it's unshaded here, it's shaded on to the left, so it means it's included. We have a different part, so we use union because we have a gap. We need to jump to take from -1. We should write it beside each other, like -4, -2, union from -1, unshaded. We have until 3. This is the range, and this video will stop here. You can watch it again, or you can ask for any questions if you have, and we will try to do the other parts in a different video.